Armageddon was a professional wrestling pay-per-view event produced by World Wrestling Federation that took place on December 12, 1999, at the National Car Rental Center in Sunrise, a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It was the first Armageddon professional wrestling pay-per-view event produced by World Wrestling Federation. The main event was a no-holds-barred match between Triple H and Vince McMahon. Triple H won the match by pinning Vince after hitting him with a sledgehammer, when Vince's daughter and Triple H's wife Stephanie McMahon turned on Vince by giving the sledgehammer to Triple H. In the undercard, Big Show squared off against Big Boss Man for the WWF Championship. New Age Outlaws wrestled Rock and Sock Connection for the WWF Tag Team Championship. Chyna met Chris Jericho for the WWF Intercontinental Championship. Kane fought X-Pac in a steel cage match. British Bulldog, Val Venis and Flo Brown competed for the WWF European Championship in a triple threat match. Background: the main rivalry heading into the event was between Triple H and the WWF chairman Vince McMahon, his boss and father-in-law. At Survivor Series, Triple H was scheduled to defend the WWF Championship against Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock in a triple threat match. During the event, he interrupted an interview of Rock, which resulted in a brawl between the two that was separated by several WWF referees. Later that event, Triple H did the same by interrupting an interview of Austin. However, Austin ran after Triple H throughout the backstage area of the arena until he was run down with a car in the parking lot of the arena. As a result, he was taken away at ambulance and was removed from the main event. Vince McMahon blamed Triple H and D-Generation X for the attack, but Triple H denied doing so. Later that night, Big Show was added as the third competitor against Triple H and Rock. Vince interfered in the match and cost Triple H the title against Big Show. On the November 15 edition of Raw is War, Vince blamed Triple H and DX again for the attack, but DX instead blamed the entire situation on Vince. On November 18 edition of SmackDown, DX assaulted McMahon's corporate stooges. Sergeant Slaughter informed McMahon of the attack and told McMahon that Triple H had invited him to DX locker room. McMahon went to the locker room, where Triple H warned McMahon not to make this personal. Later that night, Triple H came down to the ring and blamed McMahon for his title loss at Survivor Series and then challenged McMahon to a match at Armageddon. Shortly after, a footage was shown of backstage where the McMahon family had fallen down the stairs. On the November 22 edition of Raw is War, Vince destroyed a limousine carrying DX through his car. Although DX retreated, the limousine was destroyed. Later that night, the police officers arrested Vince for assaulting DX. Triple H attacked the handcuffed Vince. Later that night, Triple H came down to the ring and accused Vince for attacking Austin at Survivor Series. However, Shane McMahon came out to defend his father and informed Triple H that Vince would accept Triple H's challenge at Armageddon. On the November 29 edition of Raw is War, a storyline wedding was scheduled to occur between Vince's daughter Stephanie McMahon and Test. However, Triple H interrupted it by showing a video, in which he had married a drunk Stephanie in a wedding car. Test and Vince then ran after Triple H to attack him. On the December 2 edition of SmackDown, Triple H announced that he would wrestle Vince in a no-holds-barred match. On the December 6 edition of Raw is War, Triple H suggested a stipulation into the match that if Vince won the match, Triple H and Stephanie's marriage would be annulled, but if Triple H won, he would be granted a WWF Championship match. Vince agreed to the stipulation. Another predominant rivalry heading into the event was between Big Show and Big Boss Man. Their rivalry was stemming back from Survivor Series, when Big Show defeated Boss Man and his team of Prince Albert, Viscera and Mideon in a 1-on-4 Survivor Series elimination match. Later that night, Big Show replaced an injured Stone Cold Steve Austin in a triple threat match for the WWF Championship against then-champion Triple H and The Rock. Big Show defeated Triple H to win the title. On the November 15 edition of Raw is War, Big Boss Man became the #1 contender for the WWF Championship at Armageddon, by defeating Rock in a hardcore match. On the November 22 edition of Raw is War, Rock was scheduled to wrestle Big Boss Man and Prince Albert in a tag team match with a partner of his choosing. He chose the audience to be his partner, making it a handicap match. He was dominated throughout the match until Rock's former Rock and Sock Connection partner Mankind came out to help him as his partner, reuniting Rock and Sock Connection. The reunited team defeated Boss Man and Albert. On the November 25 edition of SmackDown, Rock and Sock Connection defeated the Holly Cousins to become the #1 contenders for the WWF Tag Team Championship, being held by New Age Outlaws at Armageddon. At Survivor Series, Chyna defeated Chris Jericho to retain the WWF Intercontinental Championship. On the November 15 edition of Raw is War, Chyna and her manager Miss Kitty distracted Jericho during a match against Gangrel, allowing Gangrel to win the match. On the November 25 edition of SmackDown, Chyna and Kitty cost Jericho another match, this time against Big Show for the WWF Championship. On the November 29 edition of Raw is War, a match was made between the two for the Intercontinental Championship when Jericho challenged Chyna for the title at Armageddon. On the November 20 edition of Jakked, the recently debuted Rikishi defeated Crash Holly in a standard wrestling match, starting a rivalry between Rikishi and Holly Cousins. On the December 12 edition of Sunday Night Heat, Viscera became Rikishi's partner after aiding him in his brawl with Holly Cousins, leading to a tag team match between Holly Cousins and the makeshift team of Rikishi and Viscera. At Survivor Series, Kane defeated X-Pac by disqualification after X-Pac's D-Generation X teammates interfered in the match and attacked Kane. On the November 29 edition of Raw is War, X-Pac interfered in a tag team match pitting Kane and Big Show against Big Boss Man and Viscera. X-Pac cost Kane the match by attacking him with a chair shot. After the match, X-Pac also attacked Kane's manager Tori. Later that night, X-Pac teamed up with New Age Outlaws to wrestle Rock and Sock Connection and their mystery partner in a 6-man tag team match. Kane was revealed to be their partner. The match ended when Al Snow interfered and attacked DX, getting Rock and Sock and Kane disqualified. On the December 2 edition of SmackDown, Kane lost to Viscera by countout after being distracted by X-Pac. This led to a steel cage match between Kane and X-Pac at Armageddon. At Survivor Series, Val Venis and his team of Steve Blackman, Gangrel and Mark Henry defeated British Bulldog and his team of Mean Street Posse in a Survivor Series elimination match. On the November 25 edition of SmackDown, Bulldog defended the WWF European Championship against Venis and retained the title by getting disqualified. On the November 29 edition of Raw is War, Bulldog interfered in a match between Venis and Kurt Angle, costing Venis the match. On the December 2 edition of SmackDown, Bulldog defended the European Championship against Lo Brown. During the match, it was announced that Bulldog would defend the title against Venis at Armageddon. Venis interfered in the match and attacked Bulldog, prompting Brown to attack Venis. As a result, all the three wrestlers began attacking each other. As a result, on the December 6 edition of Raw is War, Venis wrestled Brown to determine the #1 contender for the title at Armageddon. However, the match resulted in a no contest after Bulldog and Mean Street Posse attacked both Venis and Brown. As a result, Venis and Brown were both made the contenders for the European Championship at Armageddon, making it a triple threat match. At Survivor Series, Kurt Angle made his WWF in-ring debut with a victory against Shawn Stasiak. Angle began an undefeated streak by continuing to win matches against opponents including The Godfather, Gangrel, Mark Henry, Lo Brown and Val Venis. On the December 2 edition of SmackDown, it was announced that Angle would wrestle Steve Blackman in a standard wrestling match at Armageddon. At Survivor Series, the Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young, Deborah and Tori defeated Ivory, Luna, Jacqueline and Terry Runnels in an 8-woman tag team match. On the November 18 edition of SmackDown, Ivory defeated Jacqueline and Luna in a triple threat hardcore match to retain the WWF Women's Championship. On the November 25 edition of SmackDown, Jacqueline defeated Ivory in a non-title first ever Gravy Bowl match, with Miss Kitty serving as the special guest referee. As a result of winning, Jacqueline won the Golden Ladle Trophy. This angered Ivory and she attacked Kitty. Imp came out to help Kitty but was attacked by Ivory too. On the November 29 edition of Raw is War, the Imp was introduced by Michael Cole as Barbara Bush. She challenged Ivory to an evening gown match for the Women's Championship at Armageddon. Ivory responded by ripping off BB's shirt. On the December 6 edition of Raw is War, it was announced that Ivory would defend the Women's Championship against BB, Jacqueline and Miss Kitty in a Four Corners evening gown pool match at Armageddon. Before the event aired live on pay-per-view, Al Snow defeated Test by pinning him in a match that aired live on Sunday Night Heat. Preliminary matches as the event concluded, the first match that aired was a tag team battle royal, with the winning team earning a WWF Tag Team Championship match at Royal Rumble. The participating teams in the match were the Acolytes, The Godfather and Mark Henry, the Headbangers, Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, Mean Street Posse, and Too Cool. Before the match started, Dudley Boys briefly brawled with Edge and Christian. As the match started, Mean Street Posse's third member Joey Abs interfered in the match to help his teammates, but Rodney and Abs were eliminated but the referee did not notice it. However, despite that, Mean Street Posse was the first team to get eliminated when Farouk tossed Pete Gas over the top rope. The Headbangers were next to be eliminated when Godfather backdropped Mosh over the top rope. The Acolytes then eliminated Mark Henry, causing Godfather and Henry to get eliminated from the match. Christian went on to eliminate both members of Too Cool. Edge and Christian were the next team eliminated when Devon pulled Edge from the apron. Dudley Boys were next to be eliminated when Matt eliminated Devon. The match continued until Matt and Bradshaw eliminated each other. However, the match continued as Jeff eliminated Farouk by performing a head scissor throw but the referee did not notice it. As a result, the match continued. Farouk took advantage and eliminated Jeff. As a result, APA won the Battle Royal and would earn the title shot at the Royal Rumble. The second match was between Kurt Angle and Steve Blackman. After a back-and-forth action, Angle won the match by pinning Blackman after avoiding an enziguri by Blackman and performing a bridging belly-to-back suplex. However, after the match, Blackman attacked Angle with his nunchucks. The third match was a Four Corners evening gown pool match for the WWF Women's Championship. Ivory defended the title against Miss Kitty, Jacqueline and BB the Fabulous Moeller and Mae Young served as the special guest referees. Jacqueline was the first participant to be eliminated when Ivory stripped her. BB was next to be eliminated when Ivory and Kitty both stripped her. Kitty then stripped Ivory to win the match and thus became the new women's champion. After the match, Kitty took off her dress, so she was in her bra and panties, and jumped into the pool. She climbed back onto the stage and flashed the crowd in celebration. The fourth match was a tag team match pitting the Holly Cousins against Rikishi and Viscera. After a back-and-forth action, Viscera accidentally performed a spinning heel kick on Rikishi. Hardcore took advantage and pinned Rikishi to win the match. After the match ended, Rikishi argued with Viscera and confronted him for costing him the match. Rikishi proceeded to perform a Savate kick on Viscera. As a result, both of them brawled with each other until being broken apart by several WWF referees. The fifth match was a triple threat match for the WWF European Championship. British Bulldog defended the title against Val Venis and Flo Brown. Before the match started, Bulldog was escorted to the ring by Mean Street Posse but the referee Teddy Long removed them from ringside and sent them backstage. All the three men battled each other throughout the match performing several maneuvers on each other. In the end, Brown performed a frog splash, which he calls low down, on Bulldog and attempted to pin him. Venis climbed to the top rope and performed a diving splash, which he called money shot, on both Brown and Bulldog. Venis then pinned Bulldog to win the match and thus became the new European champion. The sixth match was a steel cage match between Kane and X-Pac. X-Pac could win the match by pinfall or submission or escaping the cage, with both feet touching the floor. However, Kane could only win by pinfall or submission. X-Pac's D-Generation X teammates New Age Outlaws interfered in the match on X-Pac's behalf and tossed chairs into the ring for X-Pac to use it. X-Pac took advantage and dominated the match with this advantage. This caused Kane's valet Toro to interfere in the match. X-Pac performed a sight-out facebuster, which he called X-Factor, on Toro. Kane eventually won the match by performing a reverse belly-to-belly pilly driver, which he calls Tombstone Pilly Driver, on X-Pac. Main event matches. The seventh match of the event was a standard wrestling match for the WWF Intercontinental Championship. Chyna defended the title against Chris Jericho. After a back-and-forth match, Jericho defeated Chyna by forcing her to submit to his submission maneuver, an elevated Boston Crab, which he calls Walls of Jericho. As a result, Jericho became the new Intercontinental Champion. After the match, Jericho was interviewed by Michael Cole backstage where Chyna showed her respect to Jericho by shaking his hand and called him the better wrestler for that night. The eighth match was a tag team match for the WWF Tag Team Championship. New Age Outlaws defended the titles against Rock and Sock Connection. In the earlier portion of the match, Al Snow interfered and attacked Mankind until Rock assaulted Snow. After chasing away Snow, Rock and Sock continued to fight the Outlaws. Rock nearly won the titles when he performed a lifting side slam, which he called Rock Bottom, on Mr. Ass. Rock attempted to pin Mr. Ass after the move but Snow interfered and broke the pinfall attempt. As a result, the New Age Outlaws were disqualified and Rock and Sock won the match, but since the title could only change hands by pinfall or submission, the Outlaws retained the Tag Team Championship. After the match, an enraged Rock performed a Rock Bottom on Road Dogg and then hit Snow with a Rock Bottom and followed it by performing an elbow drop, which he called People's Elbow, on Snow. The final match on the undercard was a standard wrestling match for the WWF Championship. The Big Show defended the title against the Big Boss Man. Boss Man's enforcer Prince Albert continuously interfered on his behalf throughout the match, prompting Big Show to perform a chokeslam on Albert through the Spanish announce table. Big Show defeated Boss Man to retain the WWF Championship title by pinning Boss Man after chokeslamming him. The main event was a no-holds-barred match between Triple H and Vince McMahon. Vince's legitimate daughter and Triple H's on-screen wife Stephanie McMahon was in the front row in the audience to see the match. The match stipulated that if Vince won, Triple H and Stephanie's marriage would be annulled, but if Triple H won, he would receive a title shot at the WWF Championship. Mankind interfered in the match and helped Vince by appearing in the ringside area with a shopping cart full of weapons for Vince to use. This allowed Vince to dominate much of the match. One spot that took place in the event saw McMahon fall 30 feet into the trunk of a military Humvee stage prop. Triple H and McMahon eventually took their vicious battle into the parking lot just outside of the arena, in which Triple H and McMahon utilized the numerous vehicles in the parking lot as weapons. In the closing moments of the match, Vince tried to assault Triple H with Triple H's own weapon, sledgehammer, but Stephanie came out and stopped Vince from doing so. She decided to hit Triple H herself, but she lost her courage to attack him. This allowed Triple H to grab the weapon and he attacked Vince with it to win the match. After the match, Triple H tried to attack Stephanie with it but then dropped the weapon and the two embraced in the ring, revealing that it was an entire plan by both of them to take over WWF. Aftermath. On the December 13th edition of Raw is War, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon took over the show after Vince McMahon and his son Shane McMahon left the arena in their limousine, and Triple H made all the matches of that night. As a result of Triple H and Stephanie's takeover, McMahon-Helmsley era was born. Triple H and Stephanie continued to make matches of their own choice that were usually in favor of D-Generation X. This continued on the December 16th edition of SmackDown and on the December 20th edition of Raw is War. On the December 23rd edition of SmackDown, one of the victims of Triple H's matchmakings, Mick Foley's alter ego Mankind protested on these matchmakings and Stephanie decided that DX would not interfere in any match and only fair matches would be made, and Triple H was suspended in a cage above the ring during the WWF Championship match between Big Show and Mankind. Triple H's cage was lowered down and along with his DX teammates, New Age Outlaws, Triple H attacked Mankind. It was revealed to be a plan by Stephanie to punish Mankind on protesting. On the December 27 edition of Raw is War, Triple H forced Mankind to wrestle his Rock and Sock Connection partner The Rock in a match, where the loser must leave WWF. Rock won the match. As a result, Mankind was fired from WWF in the storyline. On the January 3, 2000 edition of Raw is War, Triple H announced that he would wrestle Big Show for the WWF Championship. Later that night, Triple H defeated Big Show via interference by his DX teammate X-Pac for the title. On the January 10, 2000 edition of Raw is War, Rock and the entire WWF roster threatened to leave WWF if Mick Foley was not reinstated in WWF. As a result, Triple H was forced to reinstate Foley. On the January 13, 2000 edition of SmackDown, Triple H announced that he would defend the WWF Championship against Foley at Royal Rumble. At Royal Rumble, Triple H defeated Foley's alter ego, Cactus Jack, in a street fight to retain the title. After defeating Chyna for the WWF Intercontinental Championship at Armageddon, Chris Jericho defended the title against her in a rematch on the December 30 edition of SmackDown. Both competitors' shoulders were down to the mat. As a result, both of them were pinned. On the January 3, 2000 edition of Raw is War, Stephanie McMahon ruled that both Jericho and Chyna were co-holders of the title and announced that only one of them could defend the title at a time, but if any one of them lost the title, both of them would lose it. Shortly after, Hardcore Holly began pursuing the Intercontinental Championship but was defeated by Chyna in a title match. He would then team with his Holly Cousins partner Crash Holly in matches against Chyna and Jericho. On January 20, 2000 edition of SmackDown, it was announced that Chyna, Jericho and Hardcore would wrestle in a triple threat match to determine the sole holder of the Intercontinental Championship. At Royal Rumble, Jericho defeated Chyna and Hardcore by pinning Chyna in a triple threat match to become the sole holder of the Intercontinental Championship. Results Battle Royal References External links Armageddon 1999 official website